Hi everyone, welcome to Write by Mia. I'm Mia, and in this Writer's Life video, I will be discussing how I think of story ideas and how I put those ideas onto the page. This is definitely something that I think is unique to all writers, where they get their inspiration and how they translate that inspiration to characters and a plot and a story. So I'm excited to kind of share my process with you today. So first things first, I am a huge people person. All of my stuff is very, character driven and people driven. So a lot of my ideas come from people, whether the people who I'm, super close to, my fiance Devin, or my family or friends, or sometimes complete strangers. Being in New York City, I definitely see a lot of interesting people, and a lot of times those people provide great fodder for kind of story ideation and thinking about who they are and their background and what motivates them. So that's the first thing, as I usually get a lot of my inspiration from people and kind of build from there. So I have a person or a set of people, a family, what have you, and from there my first sort of thought and my first sort of job for myself is to get to know, the characters, get to know these people. I can't write about them if I'm not, intimately aware of who they are, what their motivations are, their backgrounds, how they interact with others, all of that really intricate, compelling stuff about people. I think that really draws them out on the page. So I usually start off with some sort of free write or ideation phase for each character. I do it more so when I'm writing long form, like in the novel, but I also do it a bit when I'm writing short stories as well. And basically what this looks like is I give myself a time. So let's say 5, 10, 15 minutes. And from there, I just sort of free write, put ideas on the page about each character. So, what's their background? What do they like to do? How do they interact with the other characters? What hidden motivations do they have? And what's at stake for them, in the story and, within their world? Because for me, I really do believe that once you get close enough to your characters, they kind of start to talk back to you, and you do a disservice to them if you only make them two-dimensional and you don't take the time to really get to know them. So that's kind of my initial sort of first things first. Whenever I start something new, I gain inspiration from people, seeing someone on the street, or remembering something from when I was younger, and just kind of tucking those away and ruminating on them, and from there kind of really diving deep into who they are as people. So that'll allow me to create a much more compelling story with multiple characters. So that's number one. Number two is, a bit tougher, because then, you have these characters together, you know them deeply, but what are they going to do? How are they going to interact? What is the story around this set of characters, which most people know as plot? What's going to be happening? And I know for me, I got a lot of feedback back in college, and still do. Everything is a work in progress, where I would spend a lot of time on background information, and I wouldn't really get to kind of the meat and heart of conflict, or the plot, or what's going on among people. So I think one thing I have to remind myself of, and something I've kind of added to sort of my checklist of starting a story, is what's at stake here. And how can I start in the middle of the action? Because for me, I immediately want to hook people in and really get them interested in, the characters and the story and what's going to happen next. So I think for me, the most important part, of putting an idea to the page is making sure that initial, introduction, to the story is something that arrests the attention and grabs the attention. So are we starting off with a family fight? Who knows? Are we starting off sort of in the future and someone's looking back at what happened? And it's really, been a challenge and something I've been working on to be very purposeful in doing that, because I think it really just helps me visualize and, you know, intentionally dive deep into the heart of the matter. And I think it makes me write less as well, because I have to actually get to the point, and, you know, be concise and, you know, emotionally compelling throughout. So that's sort of like the first, like, I'm actually starting this and I have to write stuff down. Where do I start? And that is literally in the middle of the action. What are these characters going through right now? And leaving sort of a lot of the background info and kind of, you know, putting it in here and there in fits and starts, but not necessarily spending, as I used to do, a whole chunk of time on that. So that's the second thing, is sort of starting in the middle of the action and really getting to the heart of the matter, as to what really matters to these people and these characters. And then the third thing, and I think I'm definitely still working on this, is when I'm thinking of plot, I have to stop myself from, you know, giving into that self-doubt of no one is going to care about this, or there's not enough happening, or I have to think of something wildly, you know, outlandish that, you know, would really draw people in, because then you end up just being fake, I think, and I think you can very much tell when a writer's sort of pandering. So for me, I think it's very important to pay attention to my characters and what is true to them. And I think for any writer, it's really hard sometimes to like trust your gut, and you have to sort of ride that fine line between everything I write is terrible and awful and I don't want to write anything, and being paralyzed by that fear, versus everything I write, you know, is gospel and I don't care, you know, if people don't understand, I'm just going to go for it. So I think me having to balance both of those things has been difficult, you know, and I think that's especially true if you're growing in your confidence as a writer. Like, you do want people to, you know, be attracted to it and, you know, be interested in what you have to say, but at the same time, you still want to be true to what your writerly self is telling you, what your characters are telling you, and not just, you know, throw a random plot twist in because you think, you know, people will get excited about it. So this last one, you know, when I'm thinking of and crafting an idea, you know, into a story on the page, is really something that I don't sketch out beforehand. I don't do a ton of outlining. I think it's mostly the character free write. And then I just kind of let the characters sort of do their thing, and just sort of naturally, you know, bring out the conflict and bring out whatever, you know, plot there is, because I think that is the most natural way to do it. And I know the stories, or many of the stories that have touched me the most and have these blockbuster plot twists or, you know, what have you, but they were really focused on the characters and how they're growing and changing and interacting with others. I think those stories are definitely the most powerful. So that's just kind of a little, you know, inside look, I guess, into how I, you know, first think of an idea, you know, ideate on it, ruminate on it, to then being very, you know, diligent and disciplined and getting it on the page, and all the things I think about and am definitely still learning about as I go, and hopefully improving. So again, I so appreciate you all taking the time to listen. If you like what you heard, I encourage you to like and subscribe to my channel. These writers' life videos will be dropping each month, and definitely feel free to, you know, leave a comment with questions or any suggestions for future content. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much, guys. Talk to you soon.